Welcome back to The Big Picture. My guest is Erie County legislator Ed Rath, and we're talking about all things Erie County and politics and money and your money, and no shortage of conversation topics here. Let's talk a little bit about the cash bail law that was passed in New York State and how that has been kind of controversial, and what's the status of it now? There's been a lot of talk about getting rid of it or amending it, you know, and some of the ill effects that have been happening while it's been in effect.
This has been a very dangerous law for the public safety of the residents of New York State. Last year in the budget, in early April, they included the elimination of cash bail as a part of the budget. So there was the first problem that I had with it. It didn't receive the due diligence that it should have and the discussion it should have had through the committee process in Albany. But once it was passed, there were some major concerns that we saw as outcomes. And the first and foremost is the elimination of cash bail. Basically, in many ways, allows people to be back out onto the streets who are public safety threats to our communities. For example, we have had a bank robber in New York City who has robbed a bank on countless occasions, was released again without any bail, and went out and robbed a bank again and said, "You'll see me again." So the criminals are laughing at our system. The worst example that I saw, Phil, was an individual who was a 3-time felony DWI offender who was released without bail, chose to drive drunk again, and killed Jonathan Maldonado in Bellport, New York, which is out on Long Island. Jonathan was a 27-year-old grad of Buff State who was driving an Uber trying to make ends meet and was killed by this repeat offender. So what the elimination of cash bail first and foremost has done is it has literally made our communities less safe.
Well, here it is right here. Here's a list of things that you won't be charged bail on if you are arrested. Aggravated vehicular homicide. I mean, you'll be released.
Right.
Here's another one. Money laundering in support of terrorism.
Right.
I mean, you're going to be giving money to terrorists. Okay, you're arrested and you're going to be let go.
What we're seeing from, it's called criminal justice reform was what the initiative was entitled. But what we are prioritizing is criminals over the rule of law. And that's fundamentally wrong, that Albany and New York City, because this is a New York City-based agenda right now, is prioritizing criminals versus the rule of law. And the thing that is, I think, one of the most concerning aspects of this is the fact that judicial discretion is no longer available. So that if a judge, and they are in many ways responsible for determining who is a threat to our community and who is not a threat to our community, judges no longer have the discretion to hold someone in jail if they are a threat to our communities. They are forced to release them. And district attorneys are also, with new discovery rules, required to hand over evidence within 15 days.
Well, you know, that comes under the heading of good intentions, you know, gone awry. I mean, I had Judge Penny Wolfgang in here and we discussed this a little bit. And you're right, it's basically legislators trying to take away the judging from judges.
That's
correct. A judge is in there and a defendant comes in front of the judge, and if it's somebody who their story is sympathetic, you know, they're maybe the first-time offender, or they're, you know, basically somebody who has been caught up in difficult circumstances, they have a reasonable story, somebody who the judge can identify as reasonable and not a threat, okay? The judge's discretion could say, okay, I'm going to release you without bail. Right. On the other hand, if it's somebody who, you know, basically is a terrorist, has, you know, demonstrated that they are a threat to society, is going to definitely be a repeat offender. The judge's experience tells the judge this is somebody who really needs to be kept under lock and key. Otherwise,
Precisely.
They're going to go out and they're going to be a danger to people.
Precisely. And
that judge has no discretion.
The judges do not have the ability to do their job anymore. And judges are the ones who interpret the law and protect our communities from a judicial perspective. And right now, they are very frustrated across New York State. They're trying to find loopholes. They're trying to find certain scenarios where they can utilize cash bail because they know how important it is to protect our community. We've had well over 200 people less in the Erie County Jail than we had last year at this time. And many of those folks are threats to our community. Now, there were other aspects of the elimination of cash bail where, there was some good that was being accomplished, and people were being held who didn't have the wherewithal to put up the cash bail. And I understand that point, and I tend to agree with that point to an extent. But the point I made earlier about the district attorney being forced to turn over the evidence within 15 days, John Flynn had to hire 18 new employees just this year to be in compliance, and we have dozens and dozens of other people that Erie County had to bring on as employees just to comply with this incredible unfunded mandate from Albany. And once again, this is Albany being totally out of touch with upstate and the best interests of our community. And as a government, what are we here to do? Most importantly, protect the health, the welfare, and the well-being of the residents. And the elimination of cash bail does not allow us to do that.
Well, I understand the good intentions, but unintended consequences, sometimes if it's not well thought out, unintended consequences can do more harm than good. And I'll give you an example. One of the crimes that you can be arrested for and then released with no bail is criminal sale of a firearm to a minor. Now, in the inner city, if there are gang members and they have a gun and they basically, get this gun illegally and somebody has been caught selling firearms to all these gang members, that source of firearms gets arrested and gets put back on the street to continue this bad behavior, okay? That endangers the inner city community, okay? Now, the good intention was, okay, the inner city community sometimes is unfairly treated because sometimes they don't have the resources to post bail, and if they're unfairly accused, that's not fair. And those are the good intentions. But the unintended consequences are, in this case, it does more harm than good because the people in that community are put in danger.
That's precisely the point, Phil. And the unintended consequences of this elimination of cash bail are that our communities are at risk. That's why I've been calling for the repeal of this law. Not the amendment, not the improvement, but the repeal of this law. And let me tell you how I think leadership is defined in government. Leadership is defined in government by going back to the drawing table when you get it wrong and fixing it. What we see out of Albany right now is obstinance and unwillingness to change this inappropriate and dangerous law that we are seeing right now out of Albany. Leadership would say, let's go back to the drawing table and clean this thing up. That's what has to happen. This should be repealed and reconsidered so that the safety of our communities can be prioritized again from Albany.
Well, what's the status right now? Is it being considered to repeal it or to amend it?
You know what's interesting is the bipartisan agreement that this law needs to be changed. There are many individuals from both sides of the aisle that say that this is wrong, it needs to be improved, it needs to be modified. Personally, I think it should be repealed and we should start over. But I hope that there's some balance and some reasonableness out of Albany and we get this corrected as soon as possible, because the way it's working right now is 100% broken and it needs to be fixed.
Well, I'm going to segue then into another subject, which is you're an Erie County legislator right now, but you're going to be running for the state Senate, okay?
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about that. And because we're getting into that, I'm going to have to offer equal time to anybody who's your opponent, but let's talk about your run for the state Senate coming up.
Sure. I am honored to be a candidate running for the New York State Senate's 61st District. Currently, it's Mike Ranzenhofer. He is a senator that represents Amherst, Clarence, and Newstead in Erie County, all of Genesee County, as well as the western portions of Monroe County. I announced my candidacy about a month ago. I have been out in the community talking with community residents, business leaders, elected officials across this 61st district. The response has been tremendous. I feel as though it's an excellent transition from my current county legislator position into the New York State Senate in 61, because the districts are very similar. But one of the things I'm hearing from the people as I'm listening to their needs and their concerns and their priorities is that they need a voice. They need a representative, someone who has the track record of experience in elected office, has had a long set and a list of accomplishments that are consistent with the needs of the community, and they're asking for someone to bring some sense and some sensibility back to Albany, because Albany is out of touch right now. And I believe that over this campaign, I'm going to learn a tremendous amount. I'm going to be listening a significant amount to the folks and representing them as I'm advocating to be a candidate for New York 61. I'm confident in this campaign. We're going to work very hard, and November 3rd is going to be the big day, and we're going to push all the way through to the finish line.
Now, as a county legislator, and you've been in the county legislature for a while, the majority has switched back and forth between, so you've been on both sides. You've been in the majority, you've been in the minority. Currently in the state, the Republicans are in the minority. What's it like, and how frustrating is it when you're in the minority so that your vote really is kind of an opposition vote, and it's tough to make a difference and influence policy because you are in the minority? How is that work?
Sure. It's certainly very different being in the minority than being in the majority, but I think one of the most important things is paying very close attention to the priorities of the individuals that you're representing. This New York 61st district has suburban neighborhoods, it has historic villages, has a tremendous amount of farmland, and it also has some urban neighborhoods. So those priorities are going to be different based on the different areas of the district. But I do believe also in the concept of checks and balances and a two-party system. Right now in Albany, we have single-party control. The governor, the state assembly, and the state senate are all under one-party control. That a lot of times leads to government that's out of touch and government that is not representative of all the needs and concerns of all the residents. So this year, as we're working towards me being elected as the next state senator, I'm going to be working to remind everyone of checks and balances in a two-party system and the importance for all voices being heard and all issues and priorities being represented.
Well, certainly we can say with definitive, absolute certainty that since it's been one-party control, things have changed in this state. Now, I'm going to let the people decide whether they've changed for the better or not. I mean, that's up to you guys. There's been a lot of laws that have come across now since the Democrats have been in charge. It's an individual decision. Have they been better or not? Should it be kind of a check and balance? Should both parties be a little bit here and there, balancing each other? That's to be decided next November. Now, I apologize because in my intro, I teased the green light law and the red flag law, and we never got to it. There's been so much to talk about, so we're just about out of time. I did cover possibilities of a town hall meeting, and I'd like to push that, and I'd like to try and get that
For
done.
sure. I'm absolutely in
good.
support of that idea, and I think we can have a balanced discussion from all perspectives on the green light law, on Ruthie's law, which is a very important law that we passed in Erie County a couple years ago, protecting our seniors and making sure that the information when it comes to their health and well-being in our nursing homes is shared with family members. So that discussion right here at WBBZ, I will be a champion of it, Phil, and I'll help make sure that we get all of the public officials here.
There's nothing more exciting than to have those seats, all those seats filled with people asking questions and taking part in the program. It literally energizes the program. It energizes the building. I think it'd be great. And we're going to wrap up now. I thank you for watching The Big Picture, and I thank you for watching WBBZ. Again, this is your TV station. This is your program. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on The Big Picture.